Most t-shirts are simply cool to look at or look in. Well, so are ours. But ours also aim to send a message. They aim to put a name on obstacles that once stood in your way and aren't there anymore. Struggles that you turned into successes and crushed. You made it look easy. Shop at mile.today. Mile.today. www.mile.today. A GNS collection.
This is Sherelle, creator of the Business Lounge for Successful Entrepreneurs, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast, hosted by D.Cal.
Yo. Sit yo stankin' ass down and tune into the E.I.T.H.R podcast. My daddy D.Cal is talking. Bitch.
And happy hump day to everybody out there in the world. It's your boy D.Cal here hosting the E.I.T.H.R podcast at the GNS headquarters here in beautiful, overcast, slightly over 100 degree weather, yet it's starting to sprinkle in certain spots. Northern California. How's everyone doing, man? I hope everyone's out there doing well. I hope your first day of school for your minions went better than you expected it. I hope the traffic going to, dropping them off, leaving the parking lots while you're on your way to work was a little bit more exceptional than you expected it to be. And I hope your journey to pick your kids up is better than you thought. Man, first day of school. I remember it like it was, 30 years ago. That's crazy. Because depending on what grade I'm thinking about, it kind of was. Man, time flies when you're doing this adulting shit. But it tends to stand still when you're young. And if there's anybody under the age of 21 who's listening to this podcast anywhere on the planet called Earth, do me a favor. Enjoy your youth. Because it sucks once you are literally on your own. Thank you to everybody who's tuning in to the E.I.T.H.R on the Spreaker app or the iHeartRadio or Spotify. Appreciate that. You can follow us on social media. Instagram and Twitter, the E.I.T.H.R, T-H-E-E-I-T-H-R. For those who are new, thank you, welcome, Mikasa Sukasa. The E.I.T.H.R is an acronym which stands for the elephant in the room. The whole purpose of the podcast is to ultimately talk about topics and subjects that a lot of people have a hard time discussing. Also discussing topics that a lot of people have a hard time communicating. So I try to facilitate a non-biased platform that sees from a multitude of perspectives. Because sometimes we only get caught up in how we see it. And we feel the way we see it is the right way. And sometimes that's not the case. So a lot of us has to swallow our pride and sacrifice being right for the case of what is right. And I know sometimes in our minds we think we're doing the same, and it's complete opposite. So that's what this platform is. It's not left, it's not right. It's not conservative. It's not liberal. If anything, it tries to be as possible right down the middle. Simple as that. So we're going to have a little fun today with the podcast. We're going to talk about things like social media and the aspects of social media of should employers look at your social media and determine if you should be terminated from employment, if employers have the right to look at your social media and determine if you are a qualified employee worthy of a promotion. And from a sports aspect, we're going to talk about officials, referees, and how much of an impact they have on sports. Because let's face it, depending on what sports you play, if the referee or the official does a bonehead move that could possibly cost your team the game, should they be held accountable? And I have an opinion on that. If you guys want to chime in while we're doing the podcast live, you're more than welcome to go ahead and download the Speaker app, create a profile, and that way you can chat with your boy while I'm live doing this. Also, if you're interested in any of the previous episodes of the podcast we've done, it's really simple. All you have to do is go to YouTube, type in the parent company, which is the GNS Inc., THEGNSINC. Go ahead and subscribe. Appreciate the subscription. And then you'll get to see all the episodes that we have done so far. And I believe this is episode number 36. Episode number 36. We try to bring the podcast every Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time, 6:30 Eastern. Depending on where you are in the world, you can kind of figure out your time zone and go from there. Anyone who's listened to the podcast, you know I like to start this thing off by giving a shout out to people. And what I like to do is give a shout out to those who are trying to stay on the straight and narrow, man, who are trying to do the right thing. Listen, times are tough, times are hard, times are challenging. It's not what it was last week. And who knows what life's going to be like a week from now. And Lord knows, nobody has things tougher. No one goes through things harder, more challenging than the person who's trying to do the right thing, right? The person who's trying to avoid the shortcuts, the person who's trying to avoid any of the easy route. You know, they kind of want to do everything on the up and up and on the straight and narrow. More power to you guys, straight up. Because I understand how sometimes temptation can be extremely tempting. But sometimes you just got to stay the course and keep plowing through. And as much as you've heard this cliche before, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Some tunnels are just longer than others. So I just want to give you guys a shout out to let you know there's somebody out there who's got your back. Somebody out there who's rooting for you. Somebody out there who's cheering your name. And sometimes that's all you need, is to have the right person in your corner to let you know, I got you. So your boy Decal is in your corner. I want to go ahead and give some inspiration and motivation to people. And it's really straightforward. What I want to do is to let you know, it's no matter what happens, there's somebody you are inspiring right now. There's somebody right now who has their eyes on you. And they're watching you for encouragement. Keep pushing. Because you don't know who's watching you. You don't know who you are inspiring with whatever it is that you got going on in your life. Right? There's a set of eyes that you probably haven't met yet that can't wait to hear your story. about how you accomplish something. Keep writing in that book, ladies and gentlemen. Keep writing in that book. Keep writing that story. This chapter is almost complete. And you're almost toward the tail end of it. And I want you to make sure that you keep this chapter as exciting as possible. And whatever you do, do not lose your focus. Because again, you are encouraging somebody out there. It may not feel like it, but damn it, you're going to be somebody's role model. And you probably just don't know it yet. Okay? Just want to go ahead and let you know about that. Also want to give a shout out to my people's Andrea Vargas Mendoza. She is an extremely talented artist. I've known Andrea since 6th grade when we went to Canyon Middle School together. And on the Canyon Middle School, by the office, across from the office, she painted this mural that still stands today, back from 1994. And my girl was in the Southwest doing her thing. And I just got to give her a shout out, man. I got a couple of pieces of her art hanging. And I want to do my best to make sure that the word gets spread around for her work, because I feel like she's definitely due more credit than what she's receiving. And she's too damn humble herself to say that I'm right. But if she's hearing this podcast right now, I could tell the smile on her face. The cheeks are hiding her eyes because she's smiling so big that she is appreciating this, because she's appreciated. She's one of the jewels that Earth has surfaced, and a lot of us need to go ahead and recognize her value. Just want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. Also want to give a shout out to my people's Morgan. She started her own clothing line. It's called Bay Area AF. So when you guys get the chance to look at Bay Area AF on Facebook, on Instagram, I believe it's bayareaaf.com is the website. Go ahead and check out her clothing line. If you're from the Bay Area, you have no damn excuse but to buy her shit. Simple as that. Simple as that. And anyone who wants to know what that means, well, if you know, you know. If you don't, you better act like you do until you figure it out. Okay? Simple as that. Well, we're going to get into this thing with the podcast right quick, man. I just want to make sure that, like I said, I pay my respects to my peoples and get everything going that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pay some homage and some respects to some of the sponsors. And then once we get back from that, then we're going to go ahead and get into the topic or the topics that I got in store. You guys sit back and enjoy this thing. And let's ourselves have some fun. And as my boy Bane would say, we're going to let the games begin. And I'll see you guys in a moment on the flip side of these sponsors that we got.
Hi, this is Clarissa with Zipology, and we have a fantastic selection of tea-wear, and various other items. Currently, we are offering a huge 25% off sale with Christmas in July. Come check us out on Facebook at Rissa E.I.T.H.R. That's Rissa E.I.T.H.R.
This is Dave in Auburn, California, and I'm listening to the E.I.T.H.R. with Decal.
Okay, so one of the topics we talked about, as I said before, is sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I got a message and I was responding to the message, and here we are. See what happens when you chat with me live? Sometimes I get distracted just a little bit, but it's no big deal. So the topic we talked about earlier is about officials and referees and social media. But I also want to bring up something too about people who, how should I word this? Lazy employees versus hardworking employees. Okay? But we're going to get to that in a moment. The first thing I do want to address right now, though, is social media, because social media is a huge part of our lives now. It's big. I mean, we can't live without it. If you think about it, most of us, we do everything in our lives to post it on social media. Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr. Does anyone still use Tumblr? Damn. Snapchat, TikTok, Messenger, the Gram, all that shit, right? Social media has become such a big factor in our lives. But when it comes to employees, I understand that it was a big deal in the past and becoming more of a factor in today's world, it seems. A lot of people are using your social media to determine whether you should be hired, fired, promoted, or even considered for any type of transfer, depending on the position. And it's a very slippery slope. And I put this on my social media the other night and had a couple of great conversations via Twitter. Most of the people that I engage with, we kind of see very similar, where employers should look at your past social media. They should. Because your social media is believed to be an extension, not just of yourself and your beliefs and your morals, but you also represent the company that you work for. So if you're out there putting fill in the blank to the world of the internet, and you are a representative of this employment for this company, you are an extension of that company. Now, the flip side of that, which you can get very, very dangerous, because like I said, it's a slippery slope, is if I'm posting something on my personal page and it is my personal time, my day off, my time off, and I am not a salary position, I am not in a position of authority or power with your company, I am just a regular, lowly ass sales associate, part-time cashier, part-time card attendant, whatever it may be. I'm not even a supervisor. Hell, I'm not even a lead. I'm just an employee. What I post on social media should not even factor in whether you keep me on or remove me from your payroll. It's irrelevant. My time, my social media isn't tied to the company. It's not tied to the job. It's not tied to the business. So what ties do you have in doing that? Again, the flip side of that is you are an extension of that job, right? And I think it comes down to the morals, the beliefs of the company, what they stand for, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to represent. It has a lot to do with not so much what you're saying, but a lot to do with how you're wording it, right? And sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, your intention and your actions does not always align themselves. So you can intend to get this type of response, but what you said gave off this type of reaction, or this type of, it was received differently than you intended it to be delivered. And now people are going to be very hesitant to accepting what it was that you originally meant, or accepting your views and your points from that point on, right? An example. Comedian Kevin Hart. This may be old news for some people, but for some people it also may be brand new. Kevin Hart had put a tweet, I want to say maybe 11, 12 years ago, about his son. And if anyone knows Kevin Hart, he would make jokes about his family on a regular basis. Well, someone went back to his account, found this tweet, and it resurfaced to the public. And he was removed from hosting this award show. Can't remember which award show it was. And then they considered, to replace Kevin Hart, they considered Eddie Murphy. And everyone's like, so you're going to sit back and remove Kevin Hart for a tweet he put at that time, like 10 years ago. You're going to remove him from that. But maybe you've never heard of a stand-up called Eddie Murphy Raw. Maybe you missed that back in 87. So let's pop in that VHS right quick and just see who you're getting to replace Kevin. Since what Kevin said was offensive, you might want to peep out what Eddie said, right? And then they got, comedian, I can't remember his name. I want to say something Tarvis. I could be blanking on the guy's name completely. But they got him to host. And this man pretty much went up on stage and roasted the whole shit of people who are responsible. I mean, he was calling out all kinds of evil in Hollywood. He was calling out people and being pedophiles and, people being predators and people just, the racism that's going on in Hollywood and the sexism and the equality. And he was like, you're going to get rid of Kevin Hart because of a tweet that he put 10 years ago. But this is my 7th time. I think he said it was like his 7th time hosting. Kevin, what he put was offensive, but hi, 7 times you guys bring me on the show. So he was basically pulling up the hypocrisy of it. And so the danger of doing something like that is, how can you determine what's offensive to you but not offensive to others? Secondly, the timing, right? Because at the time of Kevin Hart saying this joke, it was acceptable. It was funny. It was looked at as, oh my God, he's roasting his son. 10 years later, we've evolved to a more of a compassionate type of shell when it comes to jokes about certain preferences, races, sexualities, choices. We've grown a little bit more, some would say sensitive, some would say more empathetic. Kind of depends on how you look at it. But the time is different when he sent it versus the time it was resurfaced. It's very, very tricky. It's a slippery slope, man. Just got a chat from Alicia. At the same time, we, as employees, are sacrificing so much, then we are just a number that is quickly replaceable. So it is all about how much you want to give up for your place of the business. See, to her perspective, are you willing to give up your freedom of speech to say what you want in order to keep your placement at your job? But it's also a line that you have to understand from an employer perspective. When was this made? What was the content of it being made? Was it tongue in cheek? Does this person have these true values? Does she or he believes in this? Is this what they believe wholeheartedly, or were they just doing it like myself? I'll post some shit on my social media for shock value, right? I say my fans need me. But if you're someone who doesn't know me, there's a great chance that someone would believe this is how I think. This is my perspective. This is the hill that I'm going to die on. This is the flag that I'm planting. This is how I see the world. It isn't. It isn't in any way, shape, or form. But I say it because people know that I'm clowning around. But again, we live in a world where someone may read one of my posts a year from now and make the determination, this is how I think. you may get somebody who wants to just make your life a living hell and resurface something that you posted just to put you under a microscope. It's a very, very delicate, I feel, thing to do when talking about social media and employment. If you are a salary position, possibly because your salary, depending on your position, also if you are a public servant, if you're someone who deals with the general public, like a cashier or a manager in a department store, excuse me, maybe the weight isn't as much if you were going into the medical field, law enforcement, legal, somewhere where you have to be 100% non-biased because your job description represents a firm. It represents a government entity. Okay. That might be a little bit different because there's a different standard for something like that. Okay. I can understand that. But if it's like a retail job or retail position, I'm kind of up in the air. But again, not to be long-winded, it depends, ladies and gentlemen, because what if you make a comment and you use the F word, right? The word that's synonymic in Europe for cigarette. What if you call somebody that slur? Does that make you homophobic? Or were you just caught up in the moment and calling something that used to mean something that you no longer can? I mean, it's so it's such a dicey situation to be in. I feel, think, and believe, man, because depending on the intent, depending on the circumstance, one should know better to not to use something like that. But again, what was the circumstances? What was the situation? Well, was he quoting something else? Was he quoting a movie? Was he saying this as his personal perspective? Was this how she felt about the person at the time? What is it? I feel as an employer, those are things that you need to weigh out. You kind of need to balance those situations and determine, yeah, no, you can't. Because I don't think you can just use one universal sweep across the board and say, this is this and that is that. I don't think it works that way. Not fairly, right? I think people need to be cautious, be careful, be very, very aware of what they say, what they post. But again, if it's your social media and you're on your own time, what does it matter? But then you go into, was it cruel and intentional and deliberate, your words? Did they have malice behind them? Were they deliberately said or typed or sent to hurt someone's feelings when you did this? Was it out of hate? Was it just to clown around with the boys? Locker room talk, as one person may call it. What was it? Again, now we get into the slippery slope of somebody using something that's derogatory and masking it in a way to where they can now manipulate and say, no, I didn't mean that deliberately. I didn't mean that to insult anybody. I was just talking to so-and-so about such and such, and it just happened to come out. Right? That's a manipulation of it. So what say you guys? Like, how do you feel? Right? I know Alicia already sent in her response about it, but How do you guys feel about that? Do you feel employers have the right to look at your social media and determine if what you say is something that they want to continue to employ? Do they want to restrict? Can they restrict? Is that a boundary that they're overstepping? Is Big Brother getting too much into your personal life? Your employer pays you to work between this time and that time. Any time outside of that, that's none of their damn business what you do, right? If you happen to, let's say you are a teacher and you work for a school district, and on your days off or your time off, you decide to be an exotic dancer. Can that district really discipline you for being a stripper? Can that district regulate you for doing an OnlyFans account? If so, what was that parent or what was that administrative person doing on that account to notice you were there? This is what Alicia says. I think that if employees can base their decisions on our activity, we should have access to their social media as well. See, personally for me, I agree with that. Listen, if you're looking at me, I can look at you. But then does that also get into the situation where they are the superior and you are the subordinate? Right? Because employees don't go into managers' meetings unless you are inviting it to a manager's meeting. So is it one of those situations where I'm the supervisor, I'm the lead, I'm the manager? It is my responsibility to make sure that everyone is in code, and because you are my subordinate, you don't have access to shit. It's just like parenting, right? The parent tells the child what to do. The child doesn't tell the parent. Well, in today's world, that's a little bit different. But growing up, it was one of those, you do as I say. I'm the parent, you're the child. So it can get extremely messy, right? I feel, is there a right answer to something like that? I think kind of like what she says, if the employer can look at mine, then I should be able to look at who is employing me to make sure that my beliefs line up with your beliefs. I think that's fair. But then you're going to run into some people who feel it doesn't really matter. So the tricky part is them looking at your social media off work, off schedule, and using that to judge whether they want you to represent them. Because you can be, you can be one way on the clock and something completely different off the clock. Now, whoever you are off the clock will that draw negativity to when you are on the clock? Let's say you post something gang related. I'm just throwing it out there. And somebody from a rival gang or someone from another neighborhood recognizes you at your job. Oh, damn. Now what? Is it, should they have anything to do with that? Should your employer say, excuse me, if it wasn't for you bringing this here, none of this would have, I know it's case by case scenario, but you understand something when you're looking at employers and jobs and corporations. They love to do the whole do as I say, not as I do. It's different type of scenarios, right? It's tricky. I say I would probably say allow somebody to look at the social media of the business. Allow the business to look at the social media of the employee. And if everyone's kind of aligned, I think you can kind of get a happy marriage, right? If the sarcasm is understood and the lines are kind of drawn in the beginning, we've seen your social media, witty personality or witty sarcasm, we appreciate that, we like that. This particular post though is kind of like pushing the line. So is this something that you truly believe in, or is this something that you just happen to say because of the dialogue? It's almost like an interview. It's kind of like, but your employer is having the receipts of everything that you said. Is that acceptable? Is that something you're okay with? Having old social media posts screenshot and brought up to you in a job interview or in a meeting for your quarterly or your annual review. It's a subject that shouldn't come up, but because we are in a social media world, it's starting to take over so much of our lives. A lot of people post their lives on it. So employers, they're even looking at it to see how often do you go out? What is your social activities like? Hell, listen, I've always had the same, man. The less you put out on social media, the more you ain't got to explain shit to anybody. But everyone feels they have to put everything on social media. And your social media is almost like your digital scrapbook. It's your digital photo album. I understand that. But the world can see it. And even if you put it on private, you can cause some employers to look at you, say, why is this private? That might be a red flag to some employees, right? I remember a few years ago, I was posting some wild shit on my Facebook, and a buddy of mine was laughing. He was like, "Yo, man, listen, if we're going to get into business with this particular company, you can't post stuff like this on your social media, because when people see your social media, they're going to judge you off of that." And I remember distinctively saying, fuck them. Listen, this is who I am. This is my page. I do what I want. And if they take what I post on my social media page seriously, then these are not the kind of people that I really want to associate myself with. Because I post to clown and have a good time. Anyone who knows me knows this. His whole thing was, but they don't know you. So they don't know this. And his girl would distance herself from my social media page because she didn't want people to associate her with what I post. And for me, I'm a firm believer in, if I'm associated with you, I want people to know I'm associated with you, because that's the diversity of my portfolio, of my network. And I can sit back and say, this is who he is, this is who she is, this is who she isn't. She's this kind of person. This is what she believes. This is not what she believes. This is what this person does for fun. If you have kind of a wild, sick sense of humor, then you understand this person. If you're a prude and someone you read and you take it for face value, you might not want to pay attention to them. But they just say this stuff for shock value. To me, it's no big deal to explain that to people. So-and-so post this just for entertainment purposes. Literally pay them no mind. They don't mean any of this. Or, now this person right here, when you see a post about something, pay attention, because they're thoroughly researched. They're thoroughly informed. They're very bright. They're very intelligent. You can engage with this person. This person over here, again, I think more jobs should look at it from that perspective. But I don't think they have the time to do that. I think getting to know you is a no-no in today's world, where making swift judgment calls. That seems to be the normal. That seems to be we're going to look at all this in a vacuum and make the broad stroke assessment, yay or nay. We're not going to go into detail because nobody wants to invest in you personally, because unfortunately nowadays you're just an employee number. You're just a login. So that's what I think. The solution to that: everybody look at everybody else's shit. If your guys are kind of aligned, you kind of agree, you're good to go. As simple as that. Now, the next thing I want to get into is officials. Officiating. Listen, if a referee in a sport is ever the topic of the sport, the referee did not do his or her job. They did not. They did a shitty job. If we're talking about the officials. But here's the thing. If a person happens to make a bad play or do a bonehead move of some sort, they're held accountable, right? If a player messes up a play or happens to do something stupid, right? That person has to be held accountable for what they did. They have to be. What makes officials different? What makes referees anything different? If you have all these camera angles and all these other officials on the field, you have the eye in the sky, telephones, all the different communications in sports. Why can't a referee make a bad call, realize it's a bad call, change that call? And why can't he or she be held accountable at the end of the game to explain what it was that they saw? Good question, right? I got another question right after this.
Hey everybody, what's up? This is Sabrina Jade, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with D-Cal.
If an official happens to blow a call that costs a team a place in the playoffs, I believe that referee should either be docked, demoted, or fired. Simple as that. There is no exceptions to the game, man. Perfect example. Sacramento Kings. There's no documented proof that this happened, but there's a confession that the NBA won a 7-game series between the Sacramento Kings and the Los Angeles Lakers. I believe it was Shaquille O'Neal who said they were the better team. They should have won that series. Because it also, there's this rumor, there's this rumor that when you had a certain lineup of officials, there was a higher probable chance that these games would reach an extension. So, with that said, if you knew this ref, or this ref, a combination of two of the three, a combination of all of the three, you knew that it was going to be either a very ticky-tack type of call game, a let them play physical kind of ball game. You understood that this ref here has a quick whistle. This ref over here swallows their whistle. This right here is quick to call a technical foul. This ref right here will let you jaw for a couple minutes and give you a stern look as a warning. You kind of knew which refs did what at a certain point in time. Because these refs have a reputation, players understand that. It's like working with a manager at a store. You know, this manager's going to let you guys go home early. You know, this manager's going to let you stay late. You know, this manager is going to be Mr. or Mrs. on the dot, on the clock when it comes to your breaks, when it comes to your lunches. You know, this manager right here is real laid back, chill. They don't care if you're on your cell phone or not. You know, this manager right here doesn't appreciate any type of standing around. You kind of just know, you get a feel. Same thing in sports, because this is their job. Referees are like the supervisors, if you will. So I feel, think and believe, and I wanted your take on this too. If a referee blows a call in a pivotal game, should they have to answer for that call? I say yes. There was a play in the Super Bowl where, what's my man's name? Chase Young? No. The wide receiver for the Bengals. He completely just shook the hell, I think, out of the cornerback for the Rams. But there was some type of penalty that happened down the field that did not get called. And it was like, when you look at it, I understand when you look at things in real time, it's easy to miss and it's easy to overlook. I get that part. But if you have all these officials and all these cameras, why can't somebody go back and tell the refs, how did you blow this call? How did you miss this call? How did this get overlooked? What were you guys thinking when you did this? And make the official explain on television to people. Here's the reason why I honestly, truly, really think they do not have officials doing that. Gambling. That's why. In my opinion, gambling. There are so many, as people would call them, degenerates out there in the world, that if I put my house up for my team to win the game, and it was a blatant no call or a blatant ghost call that was made that put my team in our position to lose the game, which caused me to lose what I bet on, and I knew which referee it was, I now put that official in danger. That's what I think. Why officials are not interviewed during games, post games, for their own safety. Because there's so much money, especially now that gambling has been legalized. The last thing you want to do is take somebody who bet big on their team to now have to look at the person that cost them their game. And I don't even think, in the way people think nowadays, I don't even think it has to be the referee that actually made the call. You might not be the official who fucked up the call. You just might be a official who happened to be on that team of officials who messed up the call, and you are now in danger. Because people don't use sense. They kind of react on emotion. And I understand that part. I think the officials should be held accountable. I think they should go up and explain their mistake. I think they should go up and explain their foul up. I think they should own it. But I also feel the reason why they don't do that is for their safety. It's for their protection. My thing is this. If you put a person up there who has to own their mistake, why don't you think about the player's safety? What about the player's protection? Because remember, the players, people know what they look like. I mean, there's only a handful of 6'10" people walking around the city, right? And unlike football players, they don't have anything covering their faces. So it's almost easy to recognize an NBA player. Certainly easier to recognize a baseball player than it is an NFL player, because they wear masks and wind guards and face guards and helmets. So sometimes it's difficult to identify a key person on your football team. But basketball and NBA, you could put these players in just as much danger as you could the officials. So why not make a referee accountable? I personally think too that if you make the referee accountable, they'll make sure they get those damn calls right, won't they? Yes sir, Bob. I believe that they will make sure those calls are right before they go out to the world. But that's me. That's kind of what I see it, right? But hell, man, referees can be bought. An official can be paid, just like a player can. But I honestly, truly think that officials had to get put on the spot to explain their decision. Calls would definitely be made differently. Definitely be made differently. Last thing I want to talk about in the podcast, lazy employees versus the hardworking employee. Listen, I have been the hardworking employee where I would work on my day off. I would come in off the clock. I would work through breaks, and I would stay late, and I would come in early, and I would do the extra and blah, 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 blah. I was willing to take the shifts that somebody else called in. I was Mr. Dependable when I worked in the retail sector. And you know what I noticed? Very few jobs appreciate you to do that. Very few. There were some. There probably still some today, but very few. But why is it when the hardworking takes a break, the whole damn store loses their mind, right? And I think that's because you are Mr. or you are Mrs. Dependable. Everyone knows when you're around, you make this ship sail smoothly. And it's part of a plan. It's part of the schedule. They know they can take a break because you're going to pick up the slack. They know you are the kind of person that's not going to let this place fail, so they don't have to put in as much effort because they know that you are going to make sure that it gets done right. The problem with that is they also understand they can slack off and you are going to cover for them. Why? Because they know that's going to be more work for you later anyway. So it's almost like saying, we don't care if you get mad because we know that you're going to do it. And we know you're not going to say anything about it. So what's the point? If you're that kind of employee, what I would do if I was you, I would definitely say, here's a middle finger. Sit on it and spin. Because I'm not going to cover your ass anymore. And let these people understand that you are a co-worker. You are not their how should I word it? You're not their bitch. Probably the best way to put it. Because listen, if you allow an employer to do that to you, they are going to continue to expect that of you. And they're not going to expect anything to come out of your mouth except for please, sir, may I have some more? That's it. That's what's going to come. That's what they're going to expect. That you don't mind doing this. You're a company woman. You're a company man. You're somebody who they know they can depend on. And yes, that looks good on you to them. But I feel today's work section appreciation doesn't go like it used to back in the day. It just doesn't. So it's almost an insult to yourself for going up and beyond, even though there's a lot of people, yourself included, who just, it's not in your DNA to not do it. But it's almost in your best interest for your peace of mind to not extend yourself too much. Because like I said, if you do, people are going to get into the habit. It's okay to expect that from you. And then the moment you start to pull back on that dependability, they look at you as you're not being reliable as much, which is a shame because you kind of proved yourself. And a lot of the times we kind of go overboard with the extension of our help to show people that they can depend on us and we're valuable. And whether we want to admit it or not, we expect for them to understand that and to appreciate that. In many cases, they don't. So, my suggestion is not to hold back from doing anything that helps the job or your business or your coworkers. My suggestion is really simple. Do it in rations. Don't do it every single time someone asks for help. Lie and say you do have a plan. Because I feel if you are the kind of person like I used to be, to sit back and say, I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. Hey, no problem. I can do it. Yeah, I got you. I'll do it. Eventually, your coworkers will start to fall back on their workload because they know, oh, so-and-so got this. I'm going to call in because I know they're going to call her. I'm going to call in because I know he'll come in and pick up the slack. Or they'll come to you directly. Hey, Decal, look, man, I got such and such going on. Could you cover my shift from this time to this time? Matter of fact, could you cover my shift this day and I got you next time? Right? Or management will come to you. And if you're the kind of person, like I said, that I was, when management comes to you, hey, D, we need for you to cover 4 to midnight instead of your 6 to midnight because so-and-so has to leave early to go take care of blah, blah, blah. Are you willing to come in? We really can use the help. And again, you don't want to be the person that says no because your supervisor came and asked you for help. In some cases, ladies and gentlemen, you might have to. You might have to be that person that says, nah, I can't do it. Look, man, I got something going on myself, right? But you don't want to put anybody else in that situation, and you kind of want them to see your value. I know I'm kind of... Stop doing that. I'm telling you from experience. It doesn't work. If anything, it's going to stress you out later. Because when you're going to need someone to cover your shift, more times than not, no one's going to do it. Because they now got into the habit of working less, yet getting paid the same. You see what I'm saying? It becomes a habit. And then you start to put this pressure on yourself as the kind of person that I don't want to let anyone down. So then you start to beat yourself up. And what happens with that hardworking employee, you start to get a resentment toward the lazy employees. And now you have a friction in the workplace. And trust me, they ain't got no problem with them being lazy. So the problem's going to be you. And even though you have justifiable cause, you're going to come off as the a-hole. You're going to come off as the aggressor. And now everyone's going to be walking around you looking at you at a certain type of way. can't put a price on a peace of mind. So you might as well go ahead and enjoy it as much as you can. And it's okay to say no. Sometimes no means I love myself more than I love you. Anyway, that's going to do it for the podcast today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time, man. I really do appreciate these talks. Like Sabrina Jade had once said, this is kind of like my audio diary. Thank you to Alicia for participating in the chat. I much appreciate that. Again, you guys can go ahead and download the Spreaker app, Spreaker. Go ahead and create an account. Once you create an account, you can chat with me live. We can interact that way. The GNS Inc. Search for us on YouTube. Subscribe to the page, and you get to see all, I believe, 36 episodes that we've done at the conclusion of this one right here. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter at the E.I.T.H.R. T-H-E-I-T-H-R. The elephant in the room. Shout out to everybody from Cincinnati to Sin City to Florida to San Francisco to Texas to Denmark to Russia to Tokyo to Brazil to Australia. Love you guys. We'll talk to you on Friday. You guys be good. Much love. Go.
My name is Andrea Vargas, and I find something special about sharing the gallery that represents me here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's called King Galleries, and it's a special place. I'm originally from California, but we find in this gallery a way to see paintings of the Southwest, of the desert, of the land, and as well as the pottery that's made by living and breathing native Pueblo artists. So it's undeniably a place to receive inspiration and to reconnect with the legacy that belongs to all of us. It belongs to all of us as peoples of the Americas. And so there's much to share. My recent body of work is inspired by the desert, the thunder clouds, and thick paint. And I look forward to more people getting to share that experience and those beautiful aspects of Earth.